Hello, welcome to Stephen University. We're judging the songs, we're singing along. Come along with Dan and me.
Very good.
On the spot, that was, Dan.
What's
On the spot.
I mean,
As I was thinking it, I was singing it. Thank you. Thank you. That's going straight to my number one Steven Universe related song. You've all just heard my first place.
I love that you adjusted the criteria to make that fit. Steven Universe related songs.
Yep.
Very good.
The intro song from this episode.
Well, there you go. Hello and welcome to the Hiatus Watch. Although it seems redundant to say hello, Chris has already done it. We are officially, Chris, the longest hiatus in the history of the show.
Way! Woo!
I mean, that itself deserves applause. So yeah, this is the longest we've ever gone without new Steven Universe since the show started. Only by a couple of days at this point, but that's stretching on, innit? They have confirmed. Go on.
It feels like the hiatus between A Single Pale Rose and The Last Bomb was longer, I must say.
Yeah, it really does. But I think, you know why, Chris? Do you want to know the real reason why? It's because they said fall. So we knew we were in for a wait. And that means you can just mentally go, okay, well, I've got several months to wait. That's cool. What happens when a show goes away without telling you when it's coming back, and it could literally be back in 2 weeks' time, is you go, this week? Anyone? No? Okay. Next? No? And you do that for several months. And it's so, you know, whereas this one, we buckled in. We knew. We were like, great, we got until the fall. The movie's in the fall. We'll probably have to wait till then. Buckle in. And move on, we compartmentalize. That's the difference. It's giving us an idea, not just leaving us utterly in the dark.
But also, Change Your Mind was such an end point that,
yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It doesn't feel like, well, what's the conclusion of that? It feels like, well, what's next? But that feels like you're willing to wait more. They've not.
Agreed.
I don't think anyone's too panicky that officially all the Marvel movies are out, whilst we know some shit started filming and casting, but no one seems to be panicking too much and going, well, what's going on? What's announced? Tell me, when are they coming?
Yeah, they'll probably announce those at Comic-Con. And actually, while we're on the subject of that,
I would have thought so.
It has now been confirmed that the Steven Universe movie trailer will air at Comic-Con, and the cast and crew will be there, moderated by Shelby Rabara again. My feelings on that I made clear last year. I like Shelby, not great for a moderator. But I will say that they've also said that they're going to do some songs. They're going to do a couple of songs on stage,
cool.
Which will be great for the in-house crowd. But I do also think it's an opportunity to give us an out-of-context song from the movie, and I think that's what will happen.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident.
Well, speaking of songs, Dan, how have you prepared for this? I'm excited for this. I'm looking forward to seeing what you've got, seeing what I've got.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting, Chris, because I sat down and I thought, well, last time we did this, it was a whole thing, wasn't it? I made a spreadsheet. I did columns.
Yeah.
And then basically, so I sat down and I started doing it again. And I was like, I listed the top sort of 20 songs I had, and I was going to narrow it down. And then I created columns. One was how much of a banger the song was. So I suppose that's just music. Like how musically would you just listen to that on its own? Then I had a column for lyrics and sort of I forgot exactly what I titled it, but it was like lyrics and meaning, like how personally meaningful the song. Resonant was the word I used. Resonant to me, the song was. Mm-hmm. Then I had a column for its importance to the story. Mm-hmm. And then I had a column for its visual stylistic approach, because these are songs that have appeared on television, so there's a visual element to some of them. Mm-hmm. And I started scoring them across that, and then I was going to work out the averages, and I got right through scoring everything, and I was about to hit sort to find out what came number one, and then I deleted the entire fucking thing because I realised I already knew what 5 songs I was choosing before I started, and I just wasted an hour of my life.
That's a really sad story. It's a really upsetting tale of your life, and I know how busy you've been recently. That's a waste of an hour.
No, it is. And I'll tell you what it was.
I must say, I nearly did the same thing. I did, because I was like, wouldn't it be funny if Dan did this last time and I did it this time? And roughly the same categories. I think I was going for the song, how much I personally liked the song, how like the respect for the craft of the song, its importance in the show. So I nearly did that. I didn't. But yeah.
But I mean, I didn't want to know what came up with the scoring because I kind of already knew, because as I'd been scoring them in those categories, I could tell which 5 songs were coming top quite frequently.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking these were the 5 songs I kind of guessed would be at the top. And it's interesting because I've had to concede songs that I might have more of a personal attachment to.
Yeah, I've ended up with a top 10, and the top, either end has never changed. The middle has roamed around quite a bit,
right?
And yeah, it was much harder than I expected it to be. Like,
yeah. Well, I have a top 5 numbered, and then I have another. Yeah. I have the other 5 that were closest to being inside that top 5. So what we'll do, we'll count down our top 5 each, one by one. I'll do my 5th choice, you do your 5th choice, 4th choice, right down to 1, and then we'll do our, we'll very quickly reel off the other close contenders. You know,
what they tend to do in like, Watch Mojo videos and all that stuff is they go down to 2 and then they do honourable mentions, which in this case would be, which I think that could be quite fun to do, because we could both be expecting the other one to name something as their first choice, and then it's in their honourable mentions.
I am convinced we've got the same first choice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Because when it comes down to it, we'll see. But we can do it that way if you like. That's fine. I don't mind.
Yeah. Just thought. Yeah. Okay. All right. So give me your number 5, Dan.
So for me, number 5, just one day, let's only think about love.
Oh, nice.
I think when I looked at the lyrics, when I thought about how it sounded, when I thought about how much I've sung it, when I thought about the incredible visuals that go along with it, and how important it is to the story, and how important it is to Stephen and his whole perspective, right before the story barrels towards change of mind, it's incredible how important that song is to the flow of the whole show, really, because that is what that episode is. The start of that wedding episode is Stephen just getting one more day of peace and quiet before it all just goes nuts. So it turns out to be truer than even he knows when he's singing it. And when I thought about songs that like I will listen to over and over again, that is because even though it isn't like traditionally musically like leaning towards pop music as such, it's very theatre-y. It's very Big Show. Do you know what I mean? It's very musical theatre. It's still one I listen to a lot and sing along to a lot. Like, it's still one I come back to quite frequently, which says a lot, I think, and it is just very well crafted. And I think with all 5 of the songs I've chosen, they perform relatively strongly in all of my categories, and that one is one of them. And it did kind of surprise me that it crept into the list, because there's one in my honourable mentions that I really thought would knock it out, would pip it. But when it came down to it, it was really clear.
Well, it went back and forth between the one I'm going to name as my 5th choice, and at the moment this is 6th. It could have been 5th. At one point I think this was 4th. Like, this was absolutely in and out of my top 5. It technically isn't now, but it easily could have been.
Yes.
Because honestly I was rotating, like I say, the middle block so much. I think the reason for me is probably with the exception of Giant Woman, if you were to say to me, sing a bit of a Steven Universe song, I'd probably go, Giant Woman. And then if you went, sing another bit, I'd go, For Just One Day, Let's Only Think About Love. I think it is one of the catchiest songs on the show. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I think it was a rip-roaring start to that episode.
Yes.
And in re-watching it as well, because I've re-watched and listened to all of these, and what I love so much about it is it's such, in the context of the episode, it's such a clever song, because that bomb is essentially, this event, this thing, this revelation has ripped us all apart, and the entire bomb really is how we're dealing with it as individuals. Yes. And how we're reacting to it as individuals. And then that episode goes, right, we're all back together, there's going to be a wedding.
Yeah.
Bismuth is back. How how are we going to acknowledge this stuff? How are we going to have some of those conversations that we need to have? How can we stop the tension and the build up to the wedding for Pearl and Stephen to have a chat, and Pearl to essentially, apologize or say how she's feeling, or you know what I mean? And I think, some of that was done in previous episodes, but Peridot thinking about Lapis, how are we gonna have that moment? To do all the moments in a song and have a moment with each character in a song is so clever because you're doing all of those things in a way that is adding to the build-up and adding to the crescendo to the wedding.
Yes.
You're reminding people that Lapis is gone before she comes back later.
Oh, yeah.
It's an awesome moment. You're
reminding people of the reminders of the cluster and its existence and the planet's plot, which
exactly,
again
which
is
also
relevant.
comes back later.
Exactly. Yeah. Sets up a lot.
And it's also just lyrically what a beautiful, wonderful message, and so true to the heart of the show.
Yes, which was a big factor for me when that resonance category was probably the one I pondered over the most because I thought it felt like it was the most important. Because as much as these songs are great, what we've established Rebecca is very good at is making songs that really resonate.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Dan's number 5. Let's only think about love.
Yeah.
My number 5.
Hit me. Don't literally hit me. Just hit me with the name of the song.
I'm gonna sing the name of it, Dan.
Oh.
In a style that's never been done on that show, but has been done on this show quite a bit.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Eddie from Pearl Jam's version of We Are the Crystal Gems. We Are the Crystal Gems. And I think if people are going to get pedantic, because there's a lot of versions, I think the extended version, but I do also love the version that we get at the end of Change Your Mind.
Or even the sort of that original shorter 30 to 40 second version that which was used for the first season and a half, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think if you have to pin me down, if it's if later on Dan says, "Let me drive my van into your heart," and I'm like, "No, Dan, is it let me drive my van into your heart, or let me drive my scar into your heart? Which are you picking?"
Let me scar my van into your heart. I think it is.
Let me scar my van into your heart. So if you have to pin me down, but essentially I'm picking the song. But if you have to pin me down, the extended version that was shown at Comic-Con.
I'm not gonna be that pedantic about it. I think if there's multiple versions of the song, you can get away with it. Like one of my a little tiny spot. It's not in my list, but it's one of my sort of honourable mentions was Love Like You, and I did wonder were people going to give me shit for which version, like about the version that ended up on the album, the full complete version, but all the individual pieces that make that up are incredible also.
Yes, I very nearly had this, not in top 10 even, but it was very nearly. I love it. It makes me want to put my fist in the air. It's again one of the catchiest songs. I think all the little snippets, especially for what's really clever is if you go back and listen to We Are the Crystal Gems, that version, it feels inherently. It still makes so much sense and could be written now, and you'd feel like it had mentioned all it needs to mention.
Yes.
Yet, when it was first released, it wasn't too spoilery. Even though now, in context, it feels incredibly spoilery.
Yes.
And that's really fucking clever. Yeah. That's really, really, really clever. I think it's the catchiest. Again, it's just that sense of, and, their individual bits, they all say so much with so little words.
Yes.
About the individual characters, I will fight to be everything everyone thinks I should be, etc. We will protect your kind. We will protect your earth. And we will protect you. I will fight for the place where I'm free to live together and exist as me. If memory serves, that line was out there before the Garnet reveal, I think, or did it come just after?
No, that was after. That was after.
Okay, that was after. But still, again, just so clever. So yeah, We Are the Crystal Gems is my 5th place.
Yeah, great song, incredible. I mean, I don't think there's much I'm going to be able to say that's that's not going to echo what you've just said. But I think for me, that theme, just even that initial 30-second version of it, brought me so much joy. I'd start an episode and there it was, and I'd sing along every time. And there aren't many shows I don't skip the intro to. I don't skip the intro to Orange is the New Black. I love that theme so much. Regina Spektor did such a great job with that. I don't skip the Game of Thrones theme because that is an incredible piece of music. No matter what anyone thinks of that show ever, like that is a
I don't skip the theme to. Wow, was the final season that bad that people now need to caveat Game of Thrones with no matter what you think of that show in general? That's a depressing thought. I don't skip the theme tune to Lost because it's so short, redundant.
Yeah,
don't need to.
That's true.
Wasting my time, Dan. If anything, skipping it, I'd skip.
You take longer by the time you hit skip, it'd be done.
And I'd have to go back, and it'd take more time to skip it, Dan, than it would, quite frankly.
I think it would. I think with Game of Thrones, though, to be fair, I'm not just referring to the fan reaction to the final season. I noticed a movement in the last year or two to those people who are like crossing their arms and going, well, I don't even watch it. It's shit in it. Like, that sort of that natural reaction to a popular thing where people like to be contrarian. So I'm talking about contingent as well. But yeah, I think the Game of Thrones theme is
see...
Go on, sorry.
Did you see the debate on someone we know's Facebook status about that?
No.
I won't name names, but I will point that out to you for you to dig out and find.
That sounds fun.
Someone we both know makes a comment on that, and then someone they know takes completely the wrong message from it and tries to start like a Facebook comments war.
Amazing. Right, we'll come back to that. For me, it's the first song I fell in love with in the show. And it's there at the beginning of the very first episode, and it is very, very good at representing what the show is tonally. It sets up the characters. Even the ending of that song in its initial incarnation is kind of a joke because it's Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl, and Stephen, because he's blundering in when they're already even that tells you so much about the dynamic of those characters. Now in later versions of that song, he blended in more. It's less about him blundering in at the end of the song and being a tag-on and being an add-on. They sort of met, and that's kind of indicative of his journey through the show as well. So even by redoing that song at a later time and making him more blended in with the musical sort of crescendo at the end of the song, that makes a statement about how far he's come. And then when you think about the visuals for that Comic-Con piece for the extended version, where it's like the footage of the journey so far with Stephen falling behind but then catching up and going ahead and jumping, beautifully done.
And the preview of Yellow Diamond and
100%. It's an absolutely incredible piece of music for sure.
Cool. There we go. What's your 4th, Dan?
Number 4 for me. This one was always going to be in this top 5 somewhere. It was just a question of where and how much I was willing to put personal bias over, factual what is a better song. In the end, it came 4th because I just couldn't justify putting it any higher. But Working Dead.
Oh wow!
Sadie Killer and the Suspects, Working Dead.
Wow, that's unexpected.
In what sense? You thought it'd be higher or lower?
I didn't think. Well, I guess I never really considered it for a place even in the top 10. I re-listened to it and really like it.
Yeah.
But I was like, nah, not. I don't know if not for me, or so I'm surprised. It's not that it's not one I would have guessed for you.
Yeah, well, when you put it in the context of of the way I analyze the songs, musically, it's one of my favorites. I listen to it all the time. It's such a fun song. It's got a sound that sort of is that sort of early 2000s sort of pop punk ska thing going on, but with a weird horror vibe edge to it. In terms of the message, I mean, being stuck in a dead end job, I feel you, Sadie. That's a message that resonates specifically with me. The visuals are great, her eating the donut and it looking like blood, Yeah, it hits all my categories strongly. And relevance to the story, obviously, it's relevance to Sadie and her journey and the big turning point that song meant for her. So it scored pretty well in all the categories. And obviously, that final one was its weakest because it's very important to Sadie, but Sadie's not that important a character. But yeah, it was always going to come somewhere in the top five, I think, for me.
They're all important characters.
I mean, that's true, but like in the context of the major story, I think
she's not necessarily key to the mythology.
No, and she's certainly not going to be.
A better way of phrasing it.
She certainly wasn't on Homeworld fighting the diamonds. So there's a
But if you'd have said in series 1 that Lars was going to be, you'd have dismissed it. So
yeah, you got me there. So it's a really great song for me, and I think when you hear the way I've laid that out in terms of my categories, even though I didn't end up actually sorting by those categories, I think it makes a lot of sense that it would end up where it did, because it is still one of the songs I listen to the most, and again, it's that message is that resonates. So
yeah, fair play. I think it's a great fun song, and I understand your reasoning. Again, for me, not necessarily that high, but I absolutely see why it's high on yours. And it is there are a lot of songs like Comet or Let Me Drive My Van Into Your Heart where they're probably the closest to songs I would listen to.
Yes.
Music taste wise.
Yes.
So I can absolutely see, and I think for that reason, it's definitely really effective and like a legitimately good song. Like it, in another Miley Cyrus could release that. You know what I mean? If she, wasn't releasing 9 Inch Nails covers. So yeah, I absolutely see it. Good shout.
There you go. So go on, Chris. Then bring us to your number 4. Let's see if you shock me in the same way. I suspect. I don't know. The only one I'm confident with is what your number 1 pick is.
Yeah, which I previously would have gone really, but now I'm not so sure. Now I think we probably have got the same, especially listening to some of the stuff you've already said. I think we've got the same number 1 as well. My number 4 is Both of You, sometimes referred to as You Both Love Me and I Love Both of You.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you should pick that. That one was in my mental top 5 throughout the week between us saying we'd do this and doing this. Both of You has flitted in and out of the imaginary version of this list I had constructed so many times. It was really, I was very torn about whether to include it or not, because it doesn't, because its problem tends to be that it's overshadowed.
But it's over, isn't it? Yeah.
But you're right though. It's certainly one of the songs with one of the most like emotionally gut punching like choruses. Like it's so beautiful.
Well, I just think so because I haven't said that yet. I was going to say that. That's I don't know whether you just knew that's probably my reasoning or
no. That's not. I was simply explaining why it was so close to being in my list.
No, you went. Oh right, but you think. Oh right, it's the way you went. But you're right. It's one of the most. I was like, I haven't said that yet.
Oh, I mean, you're right to choose it because it's because that's my reasoning. I wasn't sorry. I didn't mean to imply it with my bad use of the English language that was your thoughts. I didn't know your thoughts. No.
Well, it is my thought. It was just no. It wasn't a criticism. It was more like, how does he know I'm going to say that? Like, we now did. I know there was that weird moment of, have I said that? Like, so no. Don't worry, it wasn't. I wasn't moaning.
No. That was simply my reasoning for why it came in and out. So I totally agree with your choice to put it in this list, because I nearly did for the reason I've just expressed.
Yeah, and I think I really so I don't know whether to spoil the. So this is higher than, I'll tell you now. This is higher than It's Over, isn't it?
Right.
I've placed it above that. It's Over, isn't it? Isn't actually in my top 5, which I'm aware will shock most people. And most people would have chosen It's Over, isn't it, over this. And I went back and forth, but it's one of those go with your heart things. And for me, I don't know if it's because it's catchier, if it's because I think the message behind it is really sweet.
Yes.
And I think also, it's when what caught me when I first listened to it, and why I place it higher is because You Both Love Me and I Love Both of You is a message that everyone knows, but when the song starts, I feel like you kind of go, yeah, I just think it's hard to explain, but I like the fact that I would have said that's a thing, but I wouldn't have said, oh, they probably put it in a song. Like, it's so obvious and sweet and just like, yeah, well, but you both love me and I love both of you. And usually that would just
that
be
notion
said
of you have more in common than you thought you did.
Yeah, and usually that's the kind of sentence that would be said in dialogue. And I know it's a musical episode, but the fact that song is put into a song and eloquented so beautifully, instead of just being a throwaway sentence that Steven says, because in some shows he probably would have said that and it would have got ignored. That would have been like his argument for them to talk to each other, but it wouldn't have worked. But in this, it does work and it does bring them together.
Yes.
And I don't see any reason to compare them. I think you're absolutely right. Most people do, and I'm probably alone in putting this above It's Over, isn't it? But there's something inherently catchy about this, and I just think it's such a sweet, beautiful message, and it's such a lovely moment that at this point we've been waiting years for, and I think It's Over, isn't it, is probably Pearl's shining moment. But I think the way that what this does for the story between Pearl and Greg, for me, resonates it a bit higher.
Yeah, I totally get that, and I 100% agree with everything you just said, and I really struggled with where it fit into the context of things. And well, we'll go to my third now because it leads straight into that at this point. My third is It's Over, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the reason It's Over, isn't it, ended up in this list, and both of you didn't, which, by the way, we're slowly killing my list of honourable mentions because both of you is in my honourable mentions.
It's Over, isn't it? It's in mine.
No, I know, but I it's so straight. It's so tough because I do agree with absolutely everything you just say. And there was a version of this mental version of this that I'd sort of, because I thought about it for a good week before I put any, like, I say pen to paper, but you know what I mean. Like I was typing, but before I actually laid any of it out. And there was such a long time where I was convinced that was going to make it into my top 5. And I think the reason in the end it didn't was because when I was thinking about the songs very sort of didactically with the spreadsheet, it just hit me how visually powerful It's Over, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah.
When and so when you did, so musically, I think both are songs I could and would listen to at any time. But I will say the one I have sung to myself the most is It's Over, isn't it? Personally. So, but It's Over, isn't it? Slightly pips it there. When it comes to the resonance of it, I think it's such a sweet message, both of you. But Pearl's story is so powerful in this moment, and it's so tragic and beautiful and heart wrenching. And then obviously you throw the visual on top of that. And then it's placed in the entire story, which is that the Greg, Pearl, Rose situation was an undercurrent for so long. To bring it to the forefront that way, and particularly through such a powerful song with that powerful meaning, especially, you know, that notion that now she has to look after the son of the person that she loved but didn't feel quite the same way about her back. Like, that's a very confusing set of feelings for someone to have. And to be able to cram all that into a song that's also a beautifully written song with these incredible visuals, her on the balcony and the tux, like, with the, you know, it's just so much of it is working at all the times. And I think I realized that part of me was only throwing both of you into this, like, as high into the list as I was, to sort of shed light on both of you, because I do think ultimately the package of It's Over, isn't it, is better than both of you. I wouldn't have put it higher on the list at the end if I would have gone with my gut if I'd have really felt the other way around. But I think the temptation to put both of you in the list kept coming up because it's so overshadowed by It's Over, isn't it? And I thought, wouldn't that be a great way for me to shed a light on an also brilliant song that if you take both of you out of that episode and put it in any other episode, it's a standout song that everyone talks about to this day. But it happened to come out in the same episode as It's Over, isn't it? Which they released individually on YouTube with the full visuals, and it got a bajillion views, and everyone forgot the other song existed. and that's also tragic because it's so good. But
it also might be because for me, in a way, the most powerful thing about the song, and I can't, episodes blur. It's why if we ever did this for episodes, we'd need to really take our time and need to rewatch and stuff in the way we'd re-listen to the songs. But I feel like those opening lyrics, I was fine with the men who would come into her life now and again.
Yes.
I was fine because I knew that they didn't really matter until you.
Yes.
I was fine when you came and we fought it. It was all some silly game over her who should choose. What's so incredible about that is now I feel like everyone had knew, and it was kind of very open on the show that Pearl was in love with Rose. But I feel like those lyrics and that song is like, right, if you're denying this, if you're thinking we're not going here, nope, we're doing it.
Yeah,
we're going here.
Yeah, there was always wiggle room to say, oh no, she just she loved her as a leader. She loved her as she was like her best friend.
Yeah.
There were definitely people, and I'm sure I read these comments that refused to sort of see Pearl and Rose as romantic or more about Pearl's love for Rose as a leader and as a friend. And blah blah blah. And I always saw it as romantic, but this was the moment that they literally spelled it out. Look, anyone who's as you said, anyone who's still denying this, you're wrong.
which also means, and if you put it in this context, it's fair, and regardless of me placing personally both of you higher, and you saying about wouldn't it be nice to shine a light on that. The reality is both of you is for, I suppose both of you could be a song that would resonate with someone with divorced parents and stuff, maybe.
Yeah.
But so much of this show is about the LGBTQ community.
Mm-hmm.
Is Q right? I would hate to be wrong and gloss over that. There's Q on the end, isn't there? Yeah, cool. I know that's not me that's me checking.
Yeah.
I'm not.
I don't think because I get the impression that if you add it, there's like three versions of it. There's the shorter one, then there's the one with the Q, and then there's another one with you forgive my ignorance, listeners, with another couple letters on the end. But I think it's become accepted that it's just cumbersome to say the longer it gets. So I think people just sort of acknowledge that LGBT is the way I most. I don't think any version of it is offensive in a way. I think it's fine.
Just LGBT,
whether you do or do not add the Q, Chris.
LGBT is the phrase that the content I watch surrounding LGBT tends to say LGBT.
Yeah.
Just those letters. But I just wanted to check.
Yeah.
So
I must admit the Q doesn't roll off the tongue.
so much of this show is about those issues and those scenarios. And this song potentially gives someone who has unrequited feelings for someone of the same gender, or someone that society, or they feel society is saying they shouldn't have feelings for, and they've gone off with someone else or of a different gender or something like that. This song is a song for people in that scenario, and that's an incredibly powerful thing for this community. And of course, it therefore resonates and is remembered more, and it probably should be for what this song brings to people. It's an incredibly powerful song.
But what's also amazing is it's even more than even that, because it's like you could even spread it out to just anyone who's ever been in a ever had unrequited love.
Yeah.
And that's so universal. Having feelings for someone who does not feel the same way about you is like one of the most universal things. I think most of us have been through that. I would be surprised.
You like me as a friend, and I'm not that fond of you in general.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly. So it's it's kind of it's a very
I'm
powerful
joking.
song, and again, when you add in the visuals, which both of you does not have, like I don't even remember. I remember the last shot of both of you. They're in the car, but I don't remember anything iconically visual about the both of you sort of visuals.
I do, but I mean, I've watched it recently. It's Stephen on the piano. They're all crying, and then they're in like this kind of purple, scapey world. The two of them talking and stuff.
Okay, yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. Cool. My third choice, Dan.
Yes, I feel like we need a drum roll.
This is Garnet back together, and I'm never going down at the hands of the likes of you because I'm so much better.
Wow. I am
Number
surprised. Number 3.
Yeah. Do you think this song will be higher for me?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Yeah, explain yourself.
I love this song. This song is, I mean, three is no bad position. I'd take bronze at a sporting event, for example.
Yeah, but I think both of us, Chris, do not have the physique of a sportsman. I think bronze would be a fucking miracle for either of us at any sporting event.
That's true. This song and my number 2 rotated around an awful lot. So I'm just going to talk about why I love this song, and then I suppose I'll talk about number 2. And I honestly, like, your surprise and thinking about it, it could easily be the other way around. They're all runners up. But I adore this song so much. This was the first song that I loved and was like, whoa, like Giant Woman is catchy as fuck. It's still my go-to sing-along song. This was the first song that was like, oh wow, and the first song that like I wanted to rewind and immediately watch. And again, it's that fist pump in the air. It's just awesome. The message of the song is fantastic. This is who we are, this is who I am, and if you think you can stop me, then you need to think again, because I am a feeling and I will never end, and I won't let you hurt my planet, and I won't let you hurt my friends. Oh, so good, so powerful. What an incredible song.
Yeah, I mean, 100% agreed. Yeah, like it's, and I think that it's one of those things where, musically speaking, it is the closest the show has come to actual. You could put that on the radio.
Yeah, if that was released in the charts, it would work. This could be an Estelle song, like not a Garnet song, but it is an Estelle song, in many ways. But it's just fantastic, and like the way it plays into the episode. The whole video of it, it feels like this is in many ways the anthem for the show.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it was the first real. I think as well it sort of goes hand in hand with the Garnet reveal, doesn't it? And I think the Garnet reveal was the first big, like, absolute nod to the LGBT community. Like it really was because. It was very clear. The thing is, what's interesting about this show is that, like, people say, oh, they're, female relationships or whatever, but they're kind of not, because the gems don't really have gender. They present to Earth eyes as female, I guess it would be the way to describe it. But like, that's still, to have that on television, characters that would that are certainly to a human sort of. Approach to, like, the stereotypes stuff would describe both those characters as female and would use the her pronoun. It's incredible that the show was able to just clearly put those. I mean, and I'll be honest with you, that hug was so brilliantly done. Anyone who had a brain in their head saw that for what it was when those two characters hugged and came together and formed Garnet.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, even the lyrics of the song. I am their fury, I am their patience, I am a conversation, I am made of oof. Like,
well, I am made of love. I'm made of love. Those oohs are not oohs, it's love. She's singing love.
Yeah.
So, like, and that's what's incredible about it is I'm made of love. Like I am, like it's so clear. So when that happens, and then the song just punches it like through the air. For me, it was the moment I realized, in a more clear way than I had previously, what some of the messages of the show were going to be going forward. And I think that in itself is incredible. Like it's an amazing piece of music, and it's set to an incredible action piece.
And it does it so, and I don't know if it's because of the audience it's aimed at or the community that the show has built, but I feel like Harry Potter gets a bit criticised for that, you know, and it even has Voldemort say, "Is it love? Is love the answer again?" But I feel like there's a bit of that with the way people talk about those elements of Harry Potter, whereas it's one of the most celebrated things about this show, and it certainly is celebrated in this song.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll be, I did, 100%.
Give me your number 2, Daniel.
My number 2, Chris. This might surprise you. No, I don't think this will surprise you at all. I think this will make perfect sense to you. Here Comes a Thought.
Yeah.
From Mindful Education.
Ooh. Yeah. No, that doesn't surprise me. So hold on, it's stronger than your number 1 then? Because, I mean, if you gave me shit for it being my 3rd and it's not in your top 5.
Yeah, I was trying to keep that low key because I realised what I'd done. The reason I was so surprised, Chris, was because I was convinced it was your number 1.
It very much could have been.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back to that in a sec then, because that's obviously because it'll be my number 1. So I'll talk about my reasons for choosing it as number 1 later. Here Comes a Thought. First of all, I mean, it automatically was number 1 on my Resonate list. I think I don't want to get too much into this because it's a whole thing in it. But like, I talked about this on the Mindful Education episode, how much the message of that episode, and particularly the song, meant to me personally. And I do find it comforting, I think. And I find the song powerful. I find the visuals incredibly powerful. I think it is musically brilliant. Very well performed by all of the various people. And it's one of the songs I sang the most in the aftermath of its release. Because there's always like a period when the song first hits my ears where I'm like, pull out the ukulele, try to learn it, try to sing it badly, and there is a recording somewhere of me performing this song very badly. I won't be digging it out, don't worry. And it was like because I hadn't long had the ukulele, so it's a really terrible recording. Bad singing, bad ukulele playing, notes missing, it's awful. And it had a real resonance with me personally, which put it so high up that list. But then it ticks the box in all the other categories too. I think it's really important for Stephen, because when you look at Stephen's character arc and you look at the stuff he's been through, and the amount of times I've said on this podcast, or it's certainly in the early days of this podcast, this is a child. This is a child going through all this. Because every time something horrible happened, or there was more pressure and more weight put on this poor fucking kid, I would remind the audience, and I'd say, remember, this is a kid. This is a child that's going through this. And it makes it so much harder to take. And then you watch episodes like Mindful Education, where you see him getting that sort of like, where you see him learning those tools, and you think, well, I guess you give him those tools, that helps him deal with all that stuff. And then you think about the importance of giving those tools to children. And I said this on the Mindful Education podcast. The idea that even one person might be better equipped to deal with their life, or the events that, the out of control events that are going to hit them in their life, the various ups and downs, and giving them a tool that will help them get through it. If one kid takes that away from that episode, then that episode was absolutely worth doing. Do you know what I mean? It's such an important message, and it's such an important episode, and I wish I'd had this stuff when I was a kid. I think I'd be a more well-adjusted adult now, and not to put a bad joke on the end of an emotionally poignant moment, Chris, but there'd be less bodies littered around that I've hidden badly because I'm now a serial killer. That was the bad joke I went for there. Jesus. Talk about trying to undercut an emotional one with a shit joke. No,
kind of shot on your point, didn't it?
No, it did a little bit. No, I genuinely think that
take a moment, Dan. All right, remind yourself to take a moment and think about if you want to do that joke.
I know. I genuinely think that I'd be a more well-adjusted adult than I am if I'd had these sort of messages earlier, in my life, and especially in an early sort of, because there's that. It's the same with it. Okay, this is gonna be a really weird comparison, but it's like languages. You learn them better when you're young, right? When you're a kid, when you're a baby, you can pick them up real easy. Like, it's really hard for me as an adult to take on board mindfulness. And I struggle. I really struggle, and I find it really hard to do and control and understand and get my head around. But I think if I'd have had an awareness of it from a younger age, I think it would have been a very different thing for me. It would have come more naturally to me. So yeah, I think it's a really important episode and a really important song. I think it helps that it's also a good song and that the visuals are interesting and that it has a really interesting place in the story and all the other stuff. So yeah, it's a big one.
I think it's fun and one. I adore you. I think you turned out to be a wonderful adult. Just a side point. Take a moment, remind yourself to take a moment and find yourself. It's just fantastic advice. Like, it's just brilliant advice to kids. And I think you're right. Kids absolutely take that stuff in, and it it resonates with people. I think everyone's got, there are positives and negatives. I so vividly remember sitting down in a lesson and being told, when you want something, saying please is the right thing to do, and when you get it, thank you is the right thing to do. And that just, I think as a, that stayed with me, and I think my manners are quite good. I always wish people a lovely day in shops and shit like that. Equally, I remember as a kid being called fat, even when I look at pictures and go, I wasn't fat. And I think, genuinely, we could talk about it for hours, but on a weird psychological level, I think one of the reasons I'm big now is because when you've always been considered the big kid, do you know what I mean?
Right,
it suddenly seems less, I don't know, well, what's the, I'm going to be called big. I've been called big even when I wasn't big. I'm not trying to get into those things. I'm just giving a positive example and a negative example.
Yeah.
And I think of the same thing. And I think that if, like you say, if this song had an impact on someone in that way, that's an incredible thing. And it's a song that is beautifully animated, as is that whole episode, and beautifully written and resonates.
Yeah, really does. It's incredible. So yeah, that's my number 2. So Chris, your number 2. Now I'm so curious because I'm doing the mental math to try and identify your number 1 because I no longer know your number 1. So I'm very curious. So hit me with your best shot. Number 2. Pat Benatar.
My number 2 is "Do It for Her."
Wow, good choice.
So from Sworn to the Sword. I think this would, if you'd have shown me this list last week when we'd pick our favourite songs. This is probably the one that would have surprised me. I'd have gone, which one's that again?
Is this a song that you've sort of got by going back through them in sort of, in aid for this episode in prep?
Yeah,
you've sort of discovered a love for it that you didn't necessarily pick up the first time.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair.
Okay.
But I think that's the joy of doing something like this.
Sure.
And I think that it's that doesn't make it. If anything, it almost makes it more valid because it had more work to do. We Are the Crystal Gems, Stronger Than You were already in my heart. This had more work to do to go. No, I deserve a place here. A lot of me, as we've discussed on this podcast and Nothing But Static many, many, many a time. So you take a shot, you're probably bored of me saying it. Dan's always resonated with character stuff. When we watch stuff, I tend to resonate with plot stuff. The what it says for the Pearl plot, for her to be like, do it for her, and that is to say, do it for him. Oh, that says so much. It's so beautifully done. I was really surprised at how because let me get it exactly. Hold on. So, Sworn to the Sword is season 2, episode 6.
Yes.
I was so surprised that Connie had been, training for that long, and that they did this with Connie that early. That's not my memory of it. And season 1's obviously quite a lengthy season, but still. The Connie implications of what that does for her
that's around
character.
episode 60.
Yeah, but that's still in the context of how many we've had now. That's early.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Especially because they spent a long time to really get going.
This comes before it's over, isn't it, and all of that stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of the pearl of it all, and just so subtle in the way she wells up with tears, and then they well up with tears. It's weird because. For when you said that you gave points specifically on animation, I was like, because I listened to a lot of these, but I've watched them as well. I was like, would I? That's the one category I didn't have, but it definitely plays into this.
Yeah.
The montage of Connie and the changes she makes and how they animate that is so beautifully done.
Yeah,
let alone how they do it as a song and in the lyrics, and it's really, really catchy. Things like Connie's, deep down I know that I'm just a human, but I know that I can draw my sword and fight. With my short existence, I can make a difference. I can be there for him. I can be his knight. And again...
That's what that says about Pearl, though, because Pearl is instilling these messages in Connie.
Yeah.
So it sort of has despite it being Connie saying, even though I'm just a human, you can hear Pearl being like, I'm just a Pearl. You can hear that. It's coming out through Connie. That's how clever that song can be.
And again, we talk about good messages for kids. Arya Stark, there's a lot of characters in the Marvel, Captain Marvel, but a lot of this, the kids aren't watching Game of Thrones. We've just discussed the importance of instilling messages at a young age.
Yeah.
This message of Connie going, I'm not a gem. I'm a human. I can protect him. That alone, what that could potentially say to a young woman, a young girl, just wonderful. And I was really just struck by what an incredible character piece it is, how catchy it is. It's kind of the one that whilst I didn't write it down on a spreadsheet, you're thinking through of the metrics. It's like, well, this ticks so many of the metrics for me.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I would 100% agree.
Do it for her. My surprise number 2.
Yeah, definitely a surprise, but a great choice and one that I think sort of just floated around for me. It was on my list. It was in the sort of top sort of 15 I had that I was scoring. But it just every time it went up against all the other choices, it just always fell short against them. In isolation, it's this incredible piece of music and visual, but it never quite. I don't think it ever quite tipped into my top 10. But I totally get it. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Cool. What are your run through your honourable mentions quickly, Daniel?
Oh yeah, we could do those now. That's right. That makes sense. What
were you gonna do then?
Yeah, no, I was going to go to my number 1. I forgot we were doing the honourable mentions halfway through. That's a good idea. So we've already talked about Love Like You, and both of you, they were both in there. Love Like You because it is just, it's the sound of the show. Does that make sense? It doesn't have necessarily, the message isn't exactly the message of the show or anything like that, but and obviously it doesn't really have visuals because it only ever played in bits over credits. But the sounds that make up that song are they are the sounds of all the other songs put together. It's a weird combination of the stylistic musical choices the show makes, and it's very powerful for that reason. And I think that it's one of those songs that just has a real kick to it, even though it doesn't really have any story or character relevance specifically. And also I love that everyone's just debated forever which character is singing these words. We'll probably never know because I don't think it was ever designed with a character in mind. Both of you, we've talked about it extensively. The other one was Be Wherever You Are. Because I just thought, what a wonderful message that song has. Be in the moment.
Very you song musically as well.
It's really catchy. It's really well written. Change Your Mind, which, I mean, the message of, I think the reason Change Your Mind sort of fell into the sort of top half of the 10 rather than the bottom half was simply because of the visuals, being just them on a beach, which is very beautiful but very simple. And it's hard to match that up with the epic fight of Stronger Than You, or the interesting sort of dreamscape of Here Comes a Thought. That kind of let it down. And also musically, it's very straightforward as well. It's just Stephen and the Ukulele, which is beautiful in its simplicity, but it is, again, hard to compare, just Stephen and a ukulele versus, the insanity that is, the soundscape that comes with Here Comes a Thought, or even just the use of essentially pop music that creates Stronger Than You. Mm-hmm. So that's quite kind of why it didn't quite fall into my top 10, but again, an incredible song.
Yeah, makes sense.
And the message of that one is absolutely one of the strongest messages in the whole show.
Without a doubt. Yeah. It's incredible.
And then the other one I had that was really high on my list was wait a second. It says Escapism here, but I think it was Familiar.
Those two songs always blur in my head anyway, I must admit.
No, Escapism is just the song that plays while he's found, where after the watermelon adventure. Familiar is the song I actually meant to include. Familiar, it's just one of the most unique songs. Like, the message of it, is important in that episode, because it's about Stephen discovering that he is kind of both him and his mum and Pink Diamond. It's like there are parts of them coming out in him, but he's also his own person. It's like he's on that journey. So it's important to the plot of that sort of little arc, the Change Your Mind arc, and Stephen finding himself. But it's not wider. It's not like a theme of the whole show, I don't think in the same way that some of the other stuff we've talked about is. But it is one of the most unique pieces of music the show's ever done. Those weird, plinky, sort of spacey, sort of piano notes, and the sort of the synthesized sounds as well. It just sounds very alien, that song. And then with the chorus from the Pebbles, just beautiful. And then the way that the Pink's room opens up to him as he's singing and remembering stuff, but not really. It's that it feels familiar because his situation and Pink's situation were the same. He's relating to Pink rather than directly remembering. And it's a really clever message and a really clever song, and that's why that was on my honourable mentions list.
Cool. So my honourable mentions: Let Me Drive My Van Into Your Heart.
Yeah, it's great.
/ Let Me Scar My Van Into Your Heart.
Yeah.
I think that potentially out of all the songs, except maybe Comet, this not quite, but this is in the realm of Busted, McFly, or the Jonas Brothers for a more American reference of similar bands, of which we know I'm a fan of that sort of music and those sorts of bands. So I think it really personally resonates for that, and also the message. I'm not that tall. I know I'm not that smart, but I could still offer a lot,
Yes.
If we look at Out of Place, Baby That's Okay. It's just, I think it's catchy as. I really like the message, and I'm a big fan of the Greg character and all that brings.
Yeah, I think for me, Comet pips it, and there's a reason I chose. Which, by the way, just a little comment. I threw a version of me singing Comet at the end of a podcast recently, where I changed the lyrics to point out that I'm terrible at predicting the show. Not one comment referenced it at all, and I was just like, did nobody listen to the end? Did it just... What happened? If you missed that somehow, please go back. I put work into that. I don't...
Chuck it on the end of this one again. It feels appropriate to have a song at the end of a musical episode.
I just know. They had it was a few episodes ago. I don't...
Okay.
I thought that was a real bummer. I kind of was really excited to rework the lyrics and perform that and record it and then put it on the end of the podcast.
I thought it was good. I gave you feedback. I liked it.
I know. I just put it out there. No one even referenced it was there. And I was just oh, that's ouch. Thanks, guys.
Everyone had plenty to say about your diss rap on yourself, though, on the Statics, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They definitely did. I put that on the end of this.
Giant, that's my number one. If we're doing our songs, nothing but static ranking songs, which, if the hiatus goes on much longer, we may have to do.
It's true.
My number 9 is Giant Woman. Spoke about this throughout the course of this episode. I think it's one of the catchiest, if not the catchiest songs. All I want to do is see you turn into a giant woman. Didn't break the top 5 because its main thing is how incredibly catchy it is. It's obviously not as deep or meaningful, whilst it does have a lot of story resonance. My number 8 is incredibly deep and meaningful, and I nearly mentioned it. I nearly talked about it when you were talking about. I can't even remember the name of the song, the Mindful Education song. Here Comes the Thought, because I kind of view this as the flip side of that. So my number 8 is Full Disclosure. I think that from a story point of view, it comes at a really fascinating point. It's kind of like the perfect aftermath song for the opening of season 2, after everything that happened. And not many shows deal with that kind of thing when they come back. Not many shows deal with the ramifications of a big event, quite like this show does with that song. I think it says a lot of really interesting things about Stephen and Connie's relationship, and it's the beginning of that storyline of Stephen's not okay, and all of this stuff is happening to a kid, which is why I kind of view it as the other half of Here Comes a Thought. Have you got any thoughts on Full Disclosure, Daniel?
It's an incredible song with a really good message, but I particularly just think the use of the ringtone into the music is just so genius. Like what a brilliant and very clever way to get the melody into a song. Like, just have it be the contextual ringtone that's constantly ringing for Stephen. Like, it's that idea alone is enough to put it in a top 10 with justifiably and easily. But of course, then again, on top of that, then you put a really interesting message. And a brilliant performance. In fact, it's worth noting that one thing that I didn't even really consider too strongly when we looked at these was the performance of the lead singer / performer in each of these songs. And if that was the case, some songs might have charted a bit higher, because thinking about Zach's performance in like Change Your Mind or something might have pushed it higher up my list. But yeah, no, I think Full Disclosure is a brilliant song, and Full Disclosure is definitely another brilliant Zach performance. So yeah.
As is, so my 7th and 6th we talked about, It's Over, Isn't It? And Let's Only Think About Love.
Yeah.
So just to add to Let's Only Think About Love, that's one of the most incredible Zach Callison performances.
Yes.
His high notes,
the falsetto, it's insane, isn't it?
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's just
remarkable.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. So those are our honourable mentions. No. We know what your number 1 is, Dan, but let's talk about it. Let's talk about Stronger Than You.
Yeah, I mean, it's the show. It's just the show. It can't be anything but it. It is one of the best songs. It has one of the most resonating messages for not just that episode, but for the entire show. It's basically the premise, like the theme of the show, wrapped up in a song. She's made of love and she's stronger than you. And then, the visuals are incredible, and it's part of one of the most beloved story arcs, and with one of the most beloved characters. And it's also essentially not the punchline as such, because it's not intended to be a joke, but it's the punch moment that comes after the reveal of Garnet. It's part of a huge iconic moment in the show as well, and it happens to be genuinely one of the best songs. I'd said this when you listed it as the number 3. It could literally be released on the radio. It would be a hit, I'm sure. Like, it's a great piece of modern music that would chart as well as anything else out now. I'm confident. It feels like it could be just an Estelle song. So it's one of the best songs, has one of the best visuals. That action sequence and the way the hits time with the beat, just incredible. Its importance to that episode, its importance to the whole show, and the message, everything is just firing on absolutely all cylinders. Is there a song that has a stronger message? Yeah, maybe. Is there maybe a better song musically? Maybe. But none of those ones have everything as strong. So there might be another number 1 in terms of music or visuals, but Stronger Than You is 2 in everything. Does that make sense? Like, because it's...
Yeah, I think that's subjective, but yeah, what you're saying is in your view.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, it's a podcast where we say our opinions. I assume that was implied. Yeah, in my view, Stronger Than You is like one of the top, and it could arguably be 1 or 2 or 3, like within the top couple of every single category. Whereas many of the songs that I've talked about, so if we're going on averages, and again, I never actually found out statistically if it was the strongest, but I'm sure it was. I'm just glancing at the figures it was getting when I was categorizing them. It was so high up on every list, So it's to me, and because of that, it's kind of the show wrapped up in a song. It's literally everything about the show is that's great about the show is in that one moment. So yeah, and I kind of was hoping it would be something more recent. The top, but because it just feels like I'm like old Steven Universe was better, but that's really not what I'm getting at. It's that early hit it out the park moment that the show needed to really cement that we all loved it, and it was. I think most people cite those episodes as being the moment they went from liking the show to falling in love with the show. And I think
it's certainly the moment a lot of people went, "Oh, this is what this show is." Ooh,
yeah, exactly.
That's intriguing. And that's exciting.
And you can't really say that about any of the other songs. So yeah, for me, that's why it's number one. But it gets there out of sheer logic. I think Here Comes a Thought is sort of the one that has the most personal. If I was just doing an absolutely personal list, not so much a didactic sort of where I'm actually thinking it through and thinking, okay, well, what's better in this area, in this area, in this area. Even though I didn't do the sums on the spreadsheet, I did do a lot of these sums in my head before I even put pen to paper, to borrow a phrase, and it just no matter how I calculate it, Stronger Than You comes out on top.
Fair play.
Mm-hmm.
So fair play.
And you've already obviously spoke about it.
Yeah, I think it's a great choice. We've spoken about my view on it. I just think it's a work of genius, and again, it's probably the most fist pumping moment in the show, and song wise, and I think it's an incredibly important song as well.
Yeah,
I think it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. My number one. So if I was doing categories, I think the most important categories for me is in a way the reason this song would win, which is it close to what I would listen to and enjoy musically, and the importance of the lyrics. Does it have a lot of meaning behind it? And for me, this song, if we talk about if one person takes from it and learns its lessons, that's an amazing thing. I think with this song, if everyone in the world knew this song and sung this song and acted upon this song, it would be a very different world, and it would be a beautiful one. My number one is Change Your Mind.
Yes.
For such a simple song, the power of those words,
yes,
the power of that song is absolutely phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Musically, it's the kind of song I would listen to, although it'd be longer, because it is incredibly short. And I hear what you're saying about the visuals, although I think in the context of that episode, the calmness of it is a powerful thing.
Yeah, and also it's also a reference to the title of the show. Them sat on the beach is the way the show opened in the original episode. It's like there's a
and it's also like it's kind of a lot of the songs we talked about are, like you say, representations of what the show is, and I think this is absolutely a representation of what the show is and saying as well. I think it's amazing, and one thing about why that quiet moment is so effective. So maybe this is a discussion for another time. We can span this into an episode. But I think we were saying something about Let's Only Think About Love, and I was like, man, you can really draw a line between Reunited and Change Your Mind and Infinity War and Endgame. Like, Reunited is like the clever, wow, how did they fit all of that in that script and weave it all in and have these great kind of things? And Change Your Mind is, well, fuck me, there were some cool moments in that. Was the story itself a bit rushed? You know what I mean? But it's a thing for another time. And I think Change Your Mind is about so many amazing moments, but most of the amazing moments are action based. And to have this incredible moment that is them sat on a beach is beautiful visually. But also, like I say, the main thing is the lyrics. And if everyone took the message of that song on board, it would be a very different world. I don't need you to respect me, I respect me. Yeah. I don't need you to love me, I love me. But I want you to know you could know me if you changed your mind. Oh, just incredible and so important. And that's for me why it was my personal number one.
Yeah, I totally get and agree with everything you've said. I think in a world where I was just going off the message, it would have been easily top 5 and very likely 1 or 2. You know, because it is in that category, it wipes the floor with. And when I said with stronger than you, even maybe when I said with stronger than you, you know, it isn't the most strong message in the show, but it's so close. It's so up there on all the across the board. The show that might have pipped stronger than you in that category. The song, sorry, I think I said show. The song that pips it in that category is probably this one. You know, it does have the most important message, and it is the message that's most relevant to the entire ethos of the show.
But I mean, they were all winners. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
However many songs we've talked about are just all incredible.
Yeah. Incredible. Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. We're so lucky to have a show with such an output in terms of the brilliant songs. But I think with Change Your Mind, just to sort of justify my not choosing it, I suppose. It's simply.
I don't think you need to, but feel free.
No. I just thought like just so people don't, you know, I'll give my explanation now so I don't get berated in the comments below.
Oh no, because I think I could get equally berated. I think to be honest with you, I suspect more people would choose Stronger Than You than Change Your Mind. I think the ones that if most people's number one choice would probably be Stronger Than You or It's Over, isn't it? I reckon.
Yeah, and both have had some representation in our lists, so I think that's fine. But I just, for me, again, as I think I kind of said it when I talked about it as one of my honourable mentions, it's so strong in that one area, but like the imagery that comes with it is simpler, and while it fits perfectly in that episode, and I would not ever want them to change that, when you start comparing it to the other songs for the purposes of a silly top 5, it can't really compete with, like I said, the sort of the action of Stronger Than You or the sort of ethereal wonder of Here Comes a Thought, you know, and it certainly musically is quite straightforward as well. It's just a nice little simple, almost like a jingle. Like, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I know the word jingle has become associated with like songs on adverts, but I mean it's a very simple sort of 30-second piece of music, but it is effective at what it's intending to do. But it doesn't fire on every cylinder like Stronger Than You does, which is why it didn't end up in my top 5. But it is just an incredible song.
That's what's so good about these songs and music in general. It's so what speaks to you. Like for me, the meaning is so, and you know, my personal music taste is weighed above the. I almost don't for this song. I don't view those categories as an even thing. Like I will place important on.
Now that's the difference, isn't it? I've gone at it very didactically and tried to. I've done it evenly. You've weighted the categories, which is actually
I've not
smarter.
weighted them subconsciously. I've gone with my heart, which is, you know, that's so
sure.
I've not done the spreadsheet. But my heart would weight those categories more.
Yeah, agreed. No, that's what I'm saying. That you've weighted the category. That category that it's so successful in is valued more in the way your head has assigned attributed the various pluses and minuses of the songs. That category has got more weight and more points. And you know what? A smarter person would have, when they did their spreadsheet, weighted the categories also. I didn't do that. I looked at them as evenly as possible because I was trying to get like the most clinical idea of what I think is like technically the best, like in all the areas it could be the best in, because that's just the way I work. Because I'm a fucking stupid nerd.
It's the difference. It's the difference between
in a really practical way.
It's the difference between best and favorite, isn't it? You know, my favorite songs by some of my favorite bands are probably not the songs I would consider the best.
You know, that is interesting. Yeah, and I think it's funny then to think that I've gone for what I think is best, and you've gone for what you think is your favorite. Not to say no. So using the word thinking, that makes it sound like you are not right, but like, you know what I mean. Like, you know, you've gone for your personal favorite, and I've gone for what I was like analyzing was probably the best. Because I think if I was doing favorite, it would have probably been Here Comes a Thought number 1, like absolute favorite. But I was looking at it like a little bit more didactically, which for better or worse, that's how it's ended up. So yeah, no, but I certainly don't disagree with your choice or any of the thoughts relating to it. I think you're correct in everything you said. That's incredible about that song, and that song, you know, may very well become the fucking anthem for a movement. Like, you know, it's, you know, there's
well, let's hope so. Jesus.
Changes in the air, and that song may very well be. It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people use that song as their rallying cry.
Absolutely, as they should.
And so appropriate that we be recording this episode today when Pride is in London. I'll be.
Are you going?
I'm working, sadly. So once we finish recording this, I shower and I head out. But yeah, I think I would. Otherwise, I have a bunch of friends going, so it's like I could have easily sort of gone along with the wider group. One of my friends is going for a rainbow beard.
Oh, nice!
Painting the beard rainbow.
Awesome.
I think that's a nice idea.
That's awesome.
I don't know where you get beard paint, or do you just use normal paint and hope it washes out? I don't really. It's a question I'll have to ask at a later time. Does beard paint exist? Is that a product? I don't know. If you buy normal paint, does it come out? I don't know. We'll find out, I guess. So there you go. So yeah, no, Change Your Mind is an incredible piece of music, and I absolutely, and I'm glad it's sort of the last one we got to talk about. I think there's a place of importance for that song for sure.
What are we thinking next week? Because will Comic-Con footage be out by?
Not quite, no. So the Comic-Con thing is the 17th, which would mean the episode that follows that is... So 17th of July is a Wednesday. Oh, shit. That's a day... Oh, no, was it 19th? I think it was 19th. So it'd be the 23rd would be our episode.
Cool.
So Friday the 19th is the date of the panel.
Right.
So our episode we'd probably watch the trailer that day and record on Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
For Tuesday, aiming for Tuesday to be the release date for that. So we'll have a discussion of the trailer and presumably the song or any other information tidbits we got from San Diego Comic-Con in sort of a bumper episode on the 23rd. Between now and then, Chris, fuck knows.
I might be at a wedding, but we will work that out and hopefully do it on the Monday or try and do a bumper on the Wednesday. We'll work it out.
Oh shit, I didn't realize that. Okay, well the only thing we'll only have one episode to fill between now and then. By the look of
we'll
it,
work it out.
There's the Tuesday the 16th. We'll have to figure out. Go on.
You can't criticize me for going to a wedding, all right? Let's. We're only talking about love. We're celebrating love at that wedding.
For just one more day. Let's only think about love.
Exactly. So so anyone, if it's a day late, but we will work that out.
Yeah, we'll come to that. So I don't know what we'll do next week quite yet, but we'll figure something out, Chris. I'm sure we'll find something to yap about. And if we can't think of anything to yap about, you guys will know because we'll release a revisited, which at this point I don't know why we bother doing because the views are so low on those episodes.
Really?
The last one, the giant one had like 100 listens, and the episode that preceded and followed it both had 500. It's like,
wait, the trailer one? Did you say?
No, the rewatching Giant Woman or revisiting Giant Woman got like 100. And
isn't that the one that had Comet on at the end?
No. That was the What Comes Next episode. And the What Come Next episode had like 500 views. This is just on YouTube. This doesn't include the baseline listeners we have that have moved on and pick us up through podcasting apps. This is just purely the YouTube views. And then there's a massive dip so from 500 to like 100 or 100 and something for the Giant Woman revisit, and then it jumps back up to like 500-600 for the episode after that. Where we talk about the musical announcement for the film. So.
That's fine. It's fair enough. Like but I think that they're still worth doing it for the core, and because we've got to do something until the fall. So,
Jesus, yeah, don't we just? So I think what will happen maybe is after Comic-Con, maybe we go down to every 2 weeks, and in the alternate weeks we release like a review of like a nostalgic film.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we will work that out.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. We'll have to come back to it. We've really got to gather together all the ideas, and we've had so many suggestions of things we could do episodes on. So many of which, though, that we're just like, I don't know if there's a full episode in it. It's a good idea. So maybe we could do an episode of little mini discussion points that people have suggested.
Yeah, but I don't know. I also think that's funny. Just stretching it out and just chatting random SU stuff. Like next week, I'm like, let's do our favourite town people. Let's do our favourite townies.
Well, I suppose we'd have to wait a while before we did another top. But yeah, that's.
Oh no,
as
not
well,
ranking,
no doubt.
just discussing. But yeah, no, we'll work out. We will let you know next week what next week's episode is.
Yeah. Well, you'll know when you see it pop up and you see the title. That's when you'll know.
Yeah.
But otherwise, thanks very much for listening. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll see you next week for more of this.